teachers of Reddit, what are some positive trends you have noticed in today's youth? My daycare kids are much more likely to wash their hands than my generation was when we were their age. Lol. I am a teacher at a high school in Missouri. All of the stereotypes you see in rural high schools are still prevalent. However, almost every group works harder academically. It is no longer cool to get F's and fail. Even country boys who will never leave the farm or go to college care about getting passing grades. 600 plus students in our HSBTW. Girls ask boys out more often. Boys are starting to expect girls to be more frank and straightforward with what they want more often. Other than that, just like my colleagues. Generally kinder, more generous, understanding of differences, mature. On the other hand, I find them generally more sad, maybe more cynical, and overall quite happily pessimistic toward the future. A kind of "ah we're so fucked" vibe I feel sometimes. Edit. I got to say that I teach in France. It has its importance. As someone who is a youth of today, I've literally never seen bullying where I live. People are kind of dicks sometimes but not bullies. They really get each other. As much as they diss on each other, joke around, and yes, get to the point of blows, they can usually put issues aside, sometimes to a fault, but overall they are pretty understanding of each other. They are generally independent and self-reflective. When I first started teaching, I thought I had simply lucked out getting students who were consistently bright, engaged and curious. But having now taught at 3 different universities on 2 different continents, it seems to be a general trend across universities. They are also, as noted elsewhere, generally kind and empathetic, and both my male and female students are usually pretty emotionally mature. Kids are openly kind and loving regarding their parents. I had a tough football player day in class once. I love my mom. She's my best friend. I see the old Doug my parents suck mentality falling by the wayside recently. A realization that any sort of specialization is a good thing and that a 4-year college isn't necessary for everyone. Lots of my students want to go to tech trade school or apprenticeships. They're learning from my debt-laden generation. Edit to add, Jesus people, I don't welcome my kids to class every day and tell them that college is for chumps and to become an electrician. If a student tells me their goals and they can be well achieved through a trade or vocational school, I encourage that. If a student tells me their goals and they need to go to university, then I encourage that. I asked my wife, primary teacher, and she says empathy and adaptability are the 2 traits she has seen dramatically improve over her last 15 years. Kids seem to be better at putting themselves in another's position and understanding their situation. Also, they seem to be much more flexible with changes, whether in the classroom or the outside world. The majority of my students are in the 18-22 age range. I'm 37. For reference, students are far kinder than they ever were when I was a student. They go out of their way to help each other, and they are much less judgmental than my cohort was. For the most part, they are really polite and respectful. I know a lot of professors deal with problems from cell phones, but I find that if I tell them to use their phones respectfully and only for class purposes, they do. The only real problem I seem to have with this cohort is the constant headphone wearing, but I think that's a battle I'm just going to lose. Edit. Wow, my inbox. Thank you all for responding about how headphones help you in class. For what it's worth, I allow students who need them to use them, provided they are registered with disability services. I also allow them in lab classes. It just gets really frustrating in lectures for me to have to repeat instructions because students couldn't hear over their headphones, or when someone is too busy rocking out to listen to the lecture. I'm going to have to think of some strategies to help those students who need them while still making sure they are not being disruptive or missing important stuff. Edit the second. I am truly, deeply sorry for my spelling error. I am leaving my very small mistake up as a badge of shame. The 8-year-olds I teach really make a huge deal about plastic. We watched the Blue Planet 2 episode with them, and since then they have been so mindful and really want to protect the oceans. As a general rule, they are more understanding and forgiving if somebody is different. Don't get me wrong. Some of them are still dicks to those kids, but it is a shrinking minority. Edit. Wow. Most upvoted comment of the day. Reading the comments, it seems many of you agree. That can only be a good thing. Kindness. My college students are kind and supportive to one another most of the time. Not a teacher, but I've noticed that a lot of children seem to be questioning authority rather than flat out rebelling. I teach on the college level. From what I can tell, many of them seem more open to having a variety of kind of friends. Where I teach has a big hookup and party culture, but they seem to have genuine cross-gender friendships despite that, and in my opinion, that's been good for them. Edit. I feel like I should specify, since this comment blew up, that this is dependent on who's available to you in terms of variety. For example, I went to a very racially diverse undergrad and had all kinds of friends. My students go to a very white college and do not have racial diversity in their friendships as a result, but I think a fair amount that is structural. I also feel kind of like the bad guy here, but it's interesting that men in fraternities came up, because a lot of times they are the exception with my students. They'll really only hang out with their brothers, and depending on the fraternity, can be really awful to women. Thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe.